Good afternoon. This is Tanisha Laverne Grant with blackinamerica.com. I am super excited to bring to the platform two very powerful women in media who are bringing us all kinds of stories that need to be told. Mona Scott Young, she is no stranger to the platform. If you have seen any of her reality shows, you are glued to the television because she is definitely bringing drama. And as of late, she's been bringing, television shows and film and programming that really touches to our core. And Tressa Smallwood is just serial entrepreneur, doing it. You have to see her films. Just an amazing woman. And I'm just so glad to have both of you here today. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are. Monique, Tressa, both of you have had roles as executive producer and director. For those of us, or for people who are going to be watching this, like, what is the biggest difference between executive producing and directing? And have you ever had a moment where you said, you know what, I want to direct this instead of executive producing, or I want to executive produce this instead of directing?
Well, listen, I want Mona to touch on this whole directorial debut, but I will say this. I personally never stepped behind the camera to direct. I believe if I needed to do it, I could, obviously, because I've been, watching what they do for a long time now. But I would say this, as a director, your job is really to direct the talent and to bring the vision to life, so that we can see, everything that this project was meant to be, whatever the project is at that time. But you also have your team, right? You have your DP, you have your art department, all these other people that you are responsible for basically telling them what your vision is. On the other side of that, on the producer side, whether you're an executive producer or producer, your job is to logistically make things make sense. And, if anything fails, it's really on you. And so, depending upon whether you're on TV or whether you're in the independent world, executive producer sometimes means you're the one funding projects as well. But this whole director piece is huge because, that's you're really responsible for what we see on the screen. And Mona stepped up. She, I remember when we first started talking about her directing, she was like, me? I don't know. And she killed it.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Let me tell you.
Listen, I am a big picture thinker by nature, right? I think that's what made me a successful manager. I understand how to see all the different pieces of a whole and put them together so that they form that whole. I brought those same skills into executive producing, and I think you sit from a 30,000 foot perch when you're an EP and even a creator of a project, because you're looking and you understand what all the pieces are that need to fit together, but you don't necessarily have to get into the weeds and physically execute them yourself. You just, as Tressa said, have to make sure that it happens. And if it doesn't, it all falls on you. Over the years of producing, it has, become more closely aligned with being a creative for me personally, right? I've actually taken the turn in front of the camera when I've hosted, and that became a function of needing somebody who understood the stories in an intimate way that I did. I sat in that chair. I remember they put that IFB in my ear, so I had in the IFB as the host, and then my other one, my walkie as a producer, and they were talking to me through both, ears, and I thought about it for a minute and said to my network executive, Jim, I've never done this before, right? And I don't know what I'm doing really.
Oh, wow.
But what I knew in that moment is that I knew what it would take to do the job. And when I got approached to direct, it was that same initial, hesitation of like, wait, because I have tremendous respect for what people do as their area of speciality. Yeah. You drill down, you learn something, you become good at it, and you focus in and you hone in on that. So it's not like I go around thinking like, oh, I can do that person's job. But I also always had a sense of self that allowed me to believe that anything that I set my mind to, anything that I wanted to do, I could. And it was really the subject matter that drew me to this and gave me the sense of confidence and the sense of assurance that this was something I was willing to tackle and then the infrastructure and the support system that Tressa and her Megamind team had in place allowed
Megamind Media.
Megamind Media. Successfully. But I will say this thing that I learned, Tressa, because, and I've said it to Ham, who was my AD on set. It's like, I'm so used, I was talking to Dion Taylor too, another director.
Oh, I love Dion. He's amazing. He and Roxanne.
I said to Dion today because he was like, oh, I saw this, you know, that you have this thing, or you directed. Trust me, I said, I have the utmost respect because I realize that I have the attention span of a gnat. Okay?
Oh my God.
My cell phone going off.
There's no way. There's no way. I don't believe it.
Right? I'd be like, wait, did I get that shot that I intended to get? Oh, let me look at the shot list. And, you know, because you've got to be super, you know, to do project justice. You got to be single-mindedly focused on.
That's in all our spaces. In all our spaces. In all our spaces. You know, Tressa, Mona, I got to tell you, this is amazing. This was amazing. It was beautiful to watch. You guys, it's called The Couch, and it's going to air on BET July 10th.
Yes.
Stars Yandy Smith. Yandy Smith is an actress.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Yandy Smith is a bona fide actress.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
she's a bona fide actress, Mona.
Yeah.
What made you tap in? I mean, obviously you must have seen something in her that the greater audience had not seen before or something, because.
Well, listen, I like to say Yandy is molded from my rib. You know, she started out as my intern. I've gotten to know her as a young woman with aspirations, an adult woman realizing her dreams. And I've seen her do it against all odds and, you know, overcoming all obstacles. Even putting her in front of the camera on Love and Hip Hop was something that she was reluctant to do at first, but it was because she was so unfiltered and so, what is the word? There's this, I don't want to call it an innocence because it isn't a naivete, but it's certainly a kind of joie de vivre. You know, she just has this joy for life and tackling things and jumping in head first, right? About her that I think works well for her as she's navigating entrepreneurialism. But I also knew that once she had an opportunity to dive head first into a role, that she would do it without abandon, she would do it without hesitation, and she would do it in the unbridled way that this role needed to be approached. You couldn't have somebody who had, you know, preconceived notions of how they wanted to be projected or how they wanted the world to see them. It had to be somebody who could just squarely place themselves in Patience's life, draw from their own experiences, but really make it believable that this young woman who had checked all the boxes in her life and tried to do everything perfectly could not get a handle. And, you know, was constantly feeling like her grip on her life was slipping in a way that things like a phone call from her mother or seeing her bills piling up or, you know, almost screwing up an important interview could tip her over the edge during the course of this day. And that nuance, that subtlety was so important to convey. And I knew Yandy could dig in and find that place and deliver on that.
What's so amazing about Yandy being in this role is that, you know, she's so relatable, right? I mean, we've been following Yandy for years. And to look at her, you're almost like, oh, wow. Okay. It validates everything that
it makes that impossible seem so much more possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and that's the beauty of it. You know, Mona, was there a favorite scene that you had when you're like, oh my God, this is the master shot. This is it right here.
Yeah, I
just I have a scene in my mind, and I just wonder what yours is.
I'll tell you what the scene is. When she comes back into the house after the day and after seeing her friend, and she slides down the door. And she's there because when I tell you, we must have done how many takes? Because of course we wanted the beautiful angle, downward angle. And so, you know, a lot of times you lose the essence, you lose the ability to get that same reaction every single time. And with every single take, she delivered it like it was the first time. she got into that space. It was that whole thing. It was almost a method acting moment, wouldn't you say, Tressa?
Yeah.
Song that she would put in her ears, and she stayed in that space. So even though there was all the production logistics moving around her, she just stayed in the space. And every time we called action, she delivered it with complete abandon. Snot and everything every single time. So it was so real for her that we all had goosebumps, witnessing it in the room.
It really brought tears to my eyes. It brought tears to my eyes. And I think it's going to open, a bigger conversation about mental health. Tressa, what do you think is the biggest misnomer that people have about, going to see a therapist and getting aid assist, emotionally, mentally, to help them navigate through the difficult times?
Yeah, I think there are about 3 things that stand out for me. Number one, most people are ashamed. It has become a negative stigma in the Black community. So I think some people just feel like, okay, I don't want to tell anybody because they're going to talk about me, or, there's a sense of shame behind it. I think number 2, the other one is that a lot of people will tell you, oh, you don't need a therapist, just pray, or just exercise your faith, or get over it. Everybody has their words for you when you're going through something. And I think that we have to really, in all honesty, forget about what other people say and really just think about ourselves when we know that we need something. And then lastly, I think that, time and change with us, exposing these moments through films and just through the verbiage about these projects. I've personally noticed that there are people who've said, oh, wow, this makes me feel better. Like, I've been seeing a therapist for a while now. Like, they're more willing to talk about it once they see other people, engaged in it. And I definitely agree with you when you say, like, when people see Yandy in the role, definitely younger people will say, oh, wow, it's Yandy. Even though this is scripted, for them just to see her associated with this, I think it will make people say, you know what, let me make that call. I really do need help. Because it's okay. Like, I think we all need some help and somebody to talk to at some point.
Oh, we definitely do.
I would just love to piggyback on that quickly, because in our community, right, there's the concept of the village. And we are always surrounded by family and by friends. But there's also this sense that we isolate ourselves, right? Especially when we're going through tough times, whether it's because we don't want to bother other people, we don't want to encumber them with our problems, or we don't want to be judged and we don't want to be talked about. As much as we're surrounded by people who love us and want to be there to support us, we have a tendency to isolate ourselves and to think that, oh, we just have to keep this to ourselves and handle this by ourselves. We don't often ask for help. Black women especially, we have got the superwoman syndrome, because we are conditioned to believe that it is our job to be the backbone. It is our job to hold everything together. It is our job to keep everyone else uplifted and strong. But for the most part, we're dealing with the, pressures and the stressors and the anxieties on our own. And so if this does nothing else, I want people to understand that it doesn't have to be a big event. It could be just the small things that you're dealing with that build up. God knows we have all been through some traumatic shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it. Think about the assault on our senses, our humanity, our sensibility, our who we are as people. We have been beaten down. The images that we've been exposed to, we've been desensitized. So, that has had to have taken a toll. And this is on top of worrying about whether you were going to live or die, right? Whether it be called the cops, whether you were going to be able to pay your mortgage because your job was in jeopardy, whether you were going to, what tomorrow holds because the world is changing. So there were so many layers of trauma that we experienced. And so, having an opportunity to watch this, to see someone like Yandy, who is so relatable, as you've said, that people feel like they're, she's their friend in their head. I've had so many people say, you're my auntie in my head. Okay, well, Auntie's telling you that auntie went through it. And so you need to pay attention, and you need to reach out, and you need to, not only for yourself, but look over at your sister sitting over there. Is she
Yep.
okay?
Yep.
Ask her, because she might not be okay, ready to say it and ready to tell you, but maybe if you ask her, she will, right?
This film is so timely. It's so timely, Mona. It's so timely, Tressa. I've hung out with Yandy. She has an amazing spirit. I can remember being on the carpet with her and something happened. Somebody's cord went over my foot and kind of gave me a burn. I was like, oh my gosh. She was like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Calm down. Such a sweet soul. But, as I was sharing with you ladies before we went into show, I lost my father this year, me and my sister, to COVID-19. And, I was one of the ones that would be a little judgmental, about, therapy. And although, and I've been to therapists throughout the years, but, as I got my strength, I forgot how instrumental, therapy was. It was almost like, oh, I got mine, well, figure yours out type of thing. And, I had to check myself on that. And, life had been going well. And my father passed.
Right.
It about took me right on out of here.
Yeah.
It about took me right on out of here. And so I got to be honest and full transparency, like this film has been therapy for me.
Yeah.
This film has been therapy for me. For it to drop during this time, this global health crisis, this pandemic, where over 500,000 American lives have been claimed, and it's still going upward.
Yeah.
Still going upward. Millions of lives claimed from COVID worldwide.
Yeah.
The timing of this is so powerful. Was it planned to drop for COVID-19? Like, how long had it been on the calendar is what I'm curious about, Tressa.
Yeah, this had been on the calendar. Well, this entire initiative has been on the calendar since the end of 2019. As a matter of fact, I was first approached about it in June of 2019, but it didn't officially get the green light until January of 2020. So,
wow. So this is all before COVID.
Yeah. But right now, like
this is so perfect.
Yeah,
that's the same thing I've said over and over again. When I chose mental health, it was only because, this is a topic we don't talk about enough. And, for me as a storyteller, it's really about using the platforms that I have an opportunity to be a part of to expose people to stories that they, maybe don't pay attention to, don't listen to. So that was the initial impetus for me. And then as COVID hit and we were out there, boots on the ground at the height of it, it was like, wow, this is powerful. Because and even at that time, it wasn't like I understood what I was experiencing myself, but I saw the impact on others. And I knew that everything that we were going through was going to have. I kept saying, like, there's going to be some kind of PTSD that they name, because I was watching a lot of my staff, a lot of my colleagues go through this transformation of, being in this different space and their inability to kind of function at their highest level and at their best. And I didn't even recognize the subtle signs that were happening for me and in me. And it wasn't until, we were in the edit phase and I was watching it and stuff that I realized that, wow, I actually have been, going through my own experience, and having been a part of the project allowed me to give voice to that, right? And to really be open about that, because if I was going to be true to the goal of being an instrument to help expose this, then I had to put my money where my mouth is and actually, walk the walk. And I started, talking openly about what I was experiencing and, what I was feeling, that I couldn't put my finger on it. And I would have normally have brushed it and swept it under the rug, but guess what? I can't get out of bed today and I'm crying and I don't even know why, and I'm sad and it's this heavy. I kept describing it as I have this heavy feeling. And what is this feeling? And I started giving, it shape. So once I did that, it was like, okay, what are the things that I can employ, to help me get through this? And those steps that we highlight, in the movie, I've engaged in myself, just as a means of like, okay, this is something that I know was going to be helpful. Let me use it myself. And, I just shared and Tressa shared that I lost my brother, and I probably would have.
So sorry.
Thank you. I probably would have crawled into a corner and not said a word to anybody. And no one would know, oh, what's wrong with Mona, because I would need to keep up the good image and to keep forging ahead.
That part.
Girl, I allowed myself to go openly. I, spoke to, my followers just because I wanted to share in the moment how much he meant to me. And he was always so proud of me that I wanted to tell the world that I was proud of him. And I normally don't share those personal things, but it all kind of happened. Like I always say, in his time, but like you said, it happened perfectly. We could have planned this if we tried.
Yeah. It's been very revealing. My father's passing, me and my sister are textbook daddy's girls. My father could do no wrong in our eyes. And, he knew that COVID was going to transition him. And the last thing he said to me on my voicemail, he left me a message and he told me to stay on my mark, And that's what I lean into, because if he didn't leave me that, you guys, I don't know if I'd be sitting here talking with you right now.
Yeah.
That is the honest to God's truth.
Wow.
My father has always been the wind in my sail. He's been my anchor. He's been my buttress. He's, been my friend, my ally. Yeah.
Yeah. Your life preserver. Absolutely.
And so that's why I said, you guys, you have to tune into BET July 10th to see this. You have to see this. And I'm so glad BET has tapped you guys to tell these amazing stories. One of my biggest concerns about like mental health as everybody is preparing to go back to work and go back to school is our children, our babies. I'm not really hearing a lot of conversation about, the children in therapy, because they need it too. I mean, they've been home for a whole year. They're trying to process what's happening. There's this expectation that they have to go in and just pick up immediately where they left off academically. And that may not be the case for every child. Do you know, Mona, or do you know, Tressa, of, a Black Therapist Coalition that people can reach out to find Black therapists? I know Taraji P. Henson, has had boots on the ground in terms of trying to find, Black therapists and qualified therapists, so that we can have access, because there still aren't enough.
Right.
There aren't enough. And Black is very specific.
Yeah, an amazing point, because you're absolutely right. They have been experiencing, for adults who are a little bit better equipped, look at what the toll it has taken on us. So for children who are not even fully developed emotionally, the idea that there aren't resources available to them. But you bring up a superb point, and I have, some connections in that world of kind of child psychology. And it's an interesting question that I'm actually going to pose, because that is another thing that needs more visibility. And people need to be thinking and talking about that, so that we're not in hindsight and retrospect dealing with the aftermath of what this has done, right, to that generation. Yeah. Absolutely right.
Yeah. Everyone has been affected by this. Everyone has been affected. I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, male, and he's just like, T, I'm seeing a therapist for the first time.
Yeah.
Ever.
But good for them. Yes.
That's good.
Yeah. So ladies, you're absolutely wonderful. You're remarkable. What do you want to say to the audience, just in terms of, not being afraid, just to go back to that, because I have to drive that ad nauseum. I have to drive the point of just how important therapy is, and that there is no shame to it. So Mona, if you could just talk about that one more time, just to bring it home.
Absolutely. We've all been on this self-care kick, right? And we'll go and we want the massage day and the nail day, and we're taking care of our outside. Just as important to take care of our insides. And a big part of that is allowing yourself the grace to experience those emotions, to give voice.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, Mona, not to cut you off, but you just said a key phrase there. Allow yourself the grace.
Yes. Because we are so incredibly hard on ourselves. absolutely guilty of that. And I will own up to that every single day because of the expectations we have for ourselves. And understanding that you are not, devaluing those expectations. You're actually doing honor to those because you are arming yourself and preparing yourself and building yourself up the same way you would condition yourself to run a marathon, right? If your goals are such that you have all these things you want to accomplish, make sure that you're in a space to do so. And that that also includes your mental health. And don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed, because you're doing yourself a service by being vocal, by reaching out, by asking for help, by taking care of yourself. I have felt stronger in these weeks and months of really letting my emotions out, right? Crying when I needed to, talking it out, allowing my friends to help me and to be there, my family, to lean on them. It has allowed me to get the rest and the fortification that I needed to come back stronger and better, right? And we have to be good to ourselves so that we can continue to thrive, because other than that, we're doing ourselves a disservice and doing more harm than good. So that's what I would leave everyone with, like, pay attention to that. Being strong and being brave is asking for help and getting help.
Yeah.
Woo, you just gave me goosebumps, Mona Scott.
That was a word. That was a word, Mona. I want to pass the plate for a minute.
Listen.
Woo. So well done. Tressa, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add to that with this. I think a lot of times too, it is making sure you check your circle. I think it's good for all of us to sometimes reevaluate our circles, because just because someone has been in your life for a long time doesn't mean that they can offer what you need right now.
Reevaluate your circles, Tressa. I'm sorry to speak over you, but that is so key. That is
it's really important.
That's so important.
It really is, because people have to understand where you are. Mona and I kind of just talked about something that we shared earlier. I was telling her that I had to change the fact. I used to let my team book my calendar with no breaks. So from sun up to sundown, I would be scheduled for back to back, whatever the meetings were, but I never had breaks. And finally, I had to be the person to say, no more. I can't do it. And so I think sometimes when you share with your circle where you are and what you're going through,
what you need,
it's at that point, you've told them what you need. Now, if we can't figure this out, then that means we got to reevaluate the circle. But I had to stop to say what I needed, because in 2017, I found myself just always kind of having these little mini breakdowns during the day where I just felt like I was just doing too much. And I was new to filming at that time. My production company, had only been in business for 2 years, but I was getting a lot of opportunities, more than I could handle, quite honestly, at the time. So I was having these moments, instead of just saying to my team, this is a lot, we need help. But I didn't say that, because I'm used to being that person that can make anything happen. But when I finally let that go and say, hey, I need help, but here's the red flag. So I just do things differently now. And I think that if you just evaluate where you are, what you need, and who's around you, that is a benefit. And
if they're not pouring into you and they're sucking you dry, it's time to cut it off.
Absolutely. Cut it.
Oh, goodness gracious. You ladies are absolutely amazing. This has been a wonderful afternoon, a wonderful conversation. I'm super excited about all the work that you both are doing and contributing to the culture. This film, again, you guys, is called The Couch. It airs on BET Her on July 10th. I'm calling it a mandatory must-see. It is a mandatory must.
And let me say this, the banner is The Couch, but there are 2 movies, one directed by me, which is Almost Enough, and the other one directed by Vivica Fox. So those are the 2 mental health initiatives under The Couch banner. Yes.
I love that. Thank you so much for clarifying. So listen, it's there.
Oh, and one other thing, it's BET Her.
BET Her. Yes, I did say BET Her. BET Her. You guys, you must tune in. You must continue to support Mona Scott Young, Tressa Smallwood. Thank you so much for tuning in today, you guys. And thank you so much for watching Tanisha Laverne Grant, blackinamerica.com. You guys are so amazing.
Oh, thank you.